What if I told you that a small hamlet in Tamil Nadu might be holding a key to one of the most ancient civilization of the Indian subcontinent? A civilization which might even predate the Vedic civilization which existed from 6th century BC onwards in the Gangetic plains of the northern India. A civilization which is questioning the basic assumptions which we hold very close to us to understand and appreciate the past of India's civilization and culture. The place we are talking today over here is Keeladi. Keeladi is a very small village or an hamlet situated just 13 kilometers south of Madurai on the banks of river Vagai. And what makes this place special is the hoards of artifacts and cultural deposits which has been excavated from this place. What makes it even special is the carbon dating of these artifacts pushes the dates or traces it to 6th century BC. Now, what are the potential ramifications of such findings is that it is trying to push back the date of origin of the Sangam era from 3rd century BC to 6th century BC onwards. And that is why Keeladi has become an epicenter of controversy and curiosity at the same time, where archaeology, politics and history are trying to redefine the history, identity and politics of our country. Hello viewers, I am Ritayan and today we are going to deep dive onto one of the most fascinating and interesting archaeological excavations of our time, that is the Keeladi excavations. Although we know that archaeological excavations are very important for the reconstruction of our history, since our history is so glorious. But what has happened with this archaeological excavation that it has become an epicenter of controversy and debates? To understand it, we need to go to the seed of this controversy. And the seed lies in the idea of Indian civilization. Now, traditionally and conventionally, it has been believed, which is available in our usual standard textbooks and in the popular media, that the Indian civilization is nothing but a heritage or inherited from two major civilizations. The first, Indus civilization, and second is the Vedic civilization, which had emerged during the second round of urbanization which took place in the Gangetic Valley of the northern plains of our country. Now, in this imagination of the Indian civilization, there is no place of southern India or South India as a region as a progenitor of civilization or the cultural richness. And in this conception, South India is considered as an inheritor of whatever cultural artifacts or whatever culture was developed in the Vedic civilization. And that is where ultimately the seed emerges for this controversy. Because what if I tell you that the findings which have been found in the Keeladi excavation, it is trying to challenge the dominant idea of Indian civilization. Now, this problem is further exacerbated if we will try to bring in the central government in picture. Now, the political party which is ruling the central government of present dispensation, they believed in this core idea of Indian civilization and it is there as a central tenet of their own political ideology. Since this political party derives its entire political legitimacy from the Gangetic plains itself, and that is why the findings at Keeladi becomes even more controversial, because since it is trying to challenge the dominant idea of Indian civilization, and secondly it is trying to challenge the dominant ideology of the ruling dispensation as well, and that is where the political parties trying to infiltrate this archaeological excavations. Now, what we need to understand, since these are the gravity of the findings at the Keeladi, what kind of implications it might have for the idea and identity of Indian civilization, and secondly for the historiography of India's past, and lastly it also poses in front of us as citizens and as civil society members as well, that what role should the government should play in the construction of the history. How should the government should be able to buffer the infiltration of ideology in the reconstruction of history, and this is what we are going to discuss in this discussion. So let's start with the Keeladi. So from year 2013 itself, Archaeological Survey of India, in short ASI, has been exploring a lot of sites, and they explored roughly 293 sites along 5 districts in Tamil Nadu which were on the banks of Vagai river. The districts were Theni, Dindigul, Madurai, Sivaganga, Ramnathpura. Among these districts, within the district of Sivaganga, there was a site by the name of Keeladi, which was just 13 kilometers away from Madurai. And Madurai is also famously known as the Athens of India because of its cultural significance which it holds because of the Sangam era. Now, what has been unearthed in Keeladi are hordes and hordes of artifacts which, after going through various methods of stratigraphy and radioactive dating, now these artifacts are being dated back to 6th century BC onwards, and certain artifacts are also going back to 8th century of BC. Now this is challenging the popularly held belief that ultimately the Sangam era originated from the 3rd century BC onwards, and it is pushing it back to the 6th century BC onwards. And in the purview of this thing, it is trying to challenge the traditional narrative which the central government holds for the Indian civilization or the identity of Indian civilization. And that is why, if it is trying to challenge this dominant narrative, ultimately it is leading to the controversy or the political controversy. Now, to understand the political controversy, we also need to get into the details of the excavation which has been conducted at the site of Keeladi. So there was one superintending archaeologist by the name of Amarnath Ramakrishna. You can see it over here. So he was the first person who discovered the place of Keeladi through his preliminary assessments of the quality of artifacts which were getting exposed at Keeladi. And ultimately he started with first 2 rounds of excavation at Keeladi during 2014 and 16. And hordes of artifacts were unearthed during these phase 1 and phase 2 of excavation at Keeladi. And during this time, what had happened, that it had gained a greater degree of media coverage as well, because ultimately now the news was going on that the artifacts are being excavated at Keeladi which can be dated back to 6th century BC. Now this is nothing but trying to highlight the antiquity of Tamil as a population, and that is why it became Keeladi as a site, it became a symbol of Tamil pride. And now what had happened in 2017 is that ultimately Amarnath Ramakrishna was transferred because of promotion to Assam, and in 2017 ASI conducted its third round of excavation, where it ruled out any kind of good antiquity, and it said that no such artifacts were discovered. Now this transition from phase 1 and phase 2 to the third phase of ASI excavation, and this staggering disparity with respect to in the first phase and the second phase, there were hordes and hordes of artifacts, and in the third phase ASI could not found any particular artifacts. This created suspicion in greater masses of the Tamil Nadu, and various civil society activists and political observers, they approached the Madras High Court, and then Madras High Court involved the Tamil Nadu State Department of Archaeology to take care of whatever archaeological excavations are going on at the site of Keeladi from 2018 onwards. And since then 7 more round of excavations have been conducted by the Tamil Nadu Department of Archaeology. Now what controversy emerged over here is that many political commentators tried to question the timing of promotion and transfer of Amarnath Ramakrishna. Secondly, they also questioned about why did the third phase of excavation at Keeladi did not yield any significant result, and after that when Tamil Nadu State Department of Archaeology started excavating, then they found out a greater degree of remnants and the artifacts which were unearthed, and these then provided the basis of the political controversy. And that is why ultimately many political commentators believed that since the findings of the Keeladi excavation are so significant that it is trying to challenge the political narrative which is quite dominant, and it aligns with the ideological narrative of the ruling dispensation also, that is why they are trying to play down whatever the findings are being unearthed at the Keeladi. And that is why ultimately what we need to understand, that what if whatever the evidences which the Keeladi excavation is putting in front of the scientific community, it is providing that a second wave of urbanization which took place in the Gangetic Valley, it also took place in the Vagai River Valley as well. And to understand it even further, we need to briefly identify that what is the core characteristics of an urban civilization. So there are primarily 6 core characteristics of urban civilization: that there has to be a surplus production, that people are producing more than they require so that they will be able to trade, and this is directly linked to the trade and prevalence of trade and commerce in an urban civilization. Secondly, any urban civilization will have more population density, that more and more people will live closer to each other as compared to a rural agrarian habitat which is very fragmented and sparse. The third is greater degree of social stratification, that there will be such classes existing in the society which will be distinct based on their control over the resources and the people. The fourth is distinct writing systems, that we will try to see what kind of writing systems does Keeladi offer, and dominant proportion of trade and commerce, and lastly significant developments in the realm of lifestyle and the art and culture like clothing, ornaments, games, hobbies, etc. And what are the evidences which were found out in the Keeladi excavation which actually corroborates that there was an urban civilization which was existing at that point of time? So ultimately we found various urban structures like brick walls and roofs, roof tiles with holes at both the ends so as to tie them in front of the roof. Secondly, it also provided for various pottery and pottery industry and pot sherds. It also provided for various graffiti and Tamil Brahmi script. Remember that one of the core characteristics of an urban civilization is writing, and it also provided for graffiti script and Tamil Brahmi script. Apart from it, is also provided for weaving and dyeing industry, also for the beads, and a great degree of development and cultural richness in the lifestyle. However, one very important facet the archaeologist actually tried to provide is that there were no symptoms of any kind of religious symbols was found. And this also shows that there was a secular civilization which was flourishing at the same time when the Vedic civilization was flourishing. And this is the core sense of contention. Now let us try to see what kind of artifacts which has been discovered at Keeladi. Now over here in the pictures you can see the various brick walls and the brick structures which can be there. There are various terracotta pipes which has been unearthed which are used for the water channels to transfer water from one tank to another, and there were also channels to harvest groundwater as well. With respect to the pottery, a greater heaps of pottery and pot sherds were discovered at Keeladi. Pot sherds are nothing but the broken pieces of pots. So these are pot sherds, and these forms one of the most important evidences when we go about archaeological excavation. Apart from it, greater degree of articles like spindle walls, needles, bone points, hanging stones of yarns and terracotta spheres were found, which actually provided a very strong evidence for a very flourishing weaving and dyeing industry over there. And weaving industry was flourishing in various stages of spinning, yarning, looming and weaving, etc. Apart from it, what about the graffiti and Tamili script? Now as we know that writing is one of the most important components of an urban civilization, and Indus is one of the oldest script which is knowing or which is available in the Indian subcontinent, and it is undeciphered. Now it is very readily believed that after the disappearance of the Indus script and before the emergence of the Tamil Brahmi script, there emerged a script called the graffiti, and it is also undeciphered as of now. And these graffiti scripts were found in various pot sherds which were found at the Keeladi excavation site, which actually signals a very important thing with respect to the antiquity and their link to the Indus Valley civilization. So it can also be said that since the people of Indus Valley civilization were trying to migrate towards the southern peninsular tip of the Indian subcontinent, they took this particular script, and then ultimately it evolved to the graffiti, and ultimately then it took the form of a Tamil Brahmi script. And these availability of variety of pot sherds having such kind of inscriptions, it shows that greater degree of literacy among not only the elites which are present at the Keeladi excavation site at that point of time, but also with the rural normal folks which are present over there. And with respect to the lifestyle, What do we mean by lifestyle? What kind of ornaments are we trying to wear? What kind of games are we playing? What kind of articles we are using? So many kind of similar kind of lifestyle articles and artifacts were also unearthed at the Keeladi, like this pendant needle and pestle and mortar, which we still use to actually grind the masalas in our food, right? And similarly, there was a bead making industry, and because of various kind of trade and commerce which was going on within this particular civilization, such kind of beads were also available, because this is a agate bead which was not readily available in that particular region. Now what does this signify? That ultimately it directly signifies to an availability or existence of an urban civilization at that point of time. And when these kind of evidences are providing such strong support for existence of an urban civilization, it is directly going to counter the central dogma or the central idea of the identity of the Indian civilization, which rests on that Indian civilization is largely Vedic, North centric and Sanskritic in traditions, that is Sanskrit driven and not Tamil driven. Secondly, as it was earlier believed that no second urbanization took place in the southern region, and south only inherited whatever the cultural richness which was developed in the second round of urbanization. But the evidences which we unfurled at the Keeladi, it totally provides evidence against it, and it provides that yes, there were urbanizations which took place in the southern part of our country as well. And yes, South India absolutely provided contribution for the cultural development and the development of the idea of Indian civilization. And that is why the implication becomes more and more important, that ultimately the findings at the Keeladi, it is trying to corroborate the regional antiquity and the urbanization, that definitely urbanization took place at that point in time. Yes, of course, we need more and more evidences to further corroborate the claim. Secondly, we need to rethink the chronology of the Sangam era. Earlier, it was believed that Sangam era initiated from the 3rd century BC. Now, whatever the artifacts has been unearthed at Keeladi, it is suggesting that Sangam age can go back to the 6th century BC onwards. Thirdly, as it is also suggested by various experts like Romila Thapar, Tony Joseph, etc., that Indian identity cannot be singular and it cannot be relegated only to the Vedic civilization. Indian archaeologists and Indian historians also have to factor in the contributions of various other civilizations as well. And with more and more archaeological excavations, it will throw more light into it. The fourth important implication is the questioning the Aryan-Dravidian binary, that ultimately it is trying to challenge the core hypothesis that ultimately there were Dravidians and Aryans invaded it. It might be a possibility that there was a migration from Indus Valley civilization, then ultimately it channelized into two phases. One, it went to the northern valley, second, it went towards the peninsular portion of our country. And lastly, it will have its ramifications on the identity politics, because Keeladi is trying to inflate the Tamil pride, and identity politics in India is in any way is very strong in the southern states of our country, and it is definitely going to alter the power dynamics which the central government shares with the southern states. So, by discussing such kind of large potential ramifications and implications of such findings of the Keeladi, what I would want you to do is that I will leave you with certain points to ponder upon. The first point which I would want you to ponder upon and provide your opinion on the comment box is what should be the role of the government and how government should ensure that the ideology of the political party should not get reflected into the historical reconstruction. The second important point which I would want you to ponder upon and write your answers on the comments is that what do you think that the time has come that South India should be provided its due credit to be an originator or architect of the modern Indian civilizational identity. And thirdly, please provide me your responses in the comments, where you should tell me that what other topics should we bring up in front of you in such a detailed manner. So don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Thank you. Stay tuned.